Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Storytime. Last week, we really got into some shit, didn't we? Was that too much for the first episode talking about shitting yourself at Hoover Dam? No, I think it was just enough. Did my mom come along and fact check half that video? Yeah, she did. Apparently, we don't have any German in us. So all that Hitler stuff, out the window. I said, Mom, I don't give a shit if we're not German. You being blonde hair and blue eyes, it makes the joke funnier. But you know what fact remains? I did shit myself at Hoover Dam. That's the moral of the story, all right? I bared my heart and soul in that story. That shit was rough. Welcome to this week's story time. My first trip to Universal Studios and thinking that King Kong was real. Now, for this story to make sense of why I would have thought this was real, you gotta know a little bit about my life. I was homeschooled growing up. Ew, I know. Make sure to wash your hands after you shake his hand. Homeschool kids are weird, and I'll be honest, I was never supposed to be a homeschool kid. I wasn't like them. When we go to these weird group activities and it'd be like making homeschool kids mingle, I'm like, I ain't fucking like these kids. Fucking weirdos. These fucking kids just playing with weird education toys and holding eye contact for too long. I was never meant to be a homeschool kid, but I am what I am. What I'm saying is that I was sheltered when I was very little. I didn't have like some little douchebag 4-year-old in school being like, yo, Santa's not real. There were some things that I had to do my own like scientific study to find out if it was true or not. And knowing that King Kong was fake at Universal Studios was one of those things. I was a wee lad again, maybe 7 years old. We took a trip to Universal Studios. And me being the sheltered kid that I was in homeschool, you know, all I really had done was been to Hoover Dam and shit myself at this point. I wasn't aware of, everything going on, and I thought it was amazing. I remember walking around Universal Studio and everything was just so cool, and I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. I remember there was like the backdraft ride. That was so much fun. I remember there's flames and shit. I knew going into that one because it was a backdraft that it was fake. I was like, okay, there's real flames, but obviously this is a ride. It says backdraft. I know it's about fire, so there's gonna be fire in there, okay? Here's where I got fucked up with the King Kong story. On the tram, they don't call it, hey, this is the tram to go see King Kong. No. This is the tram to tour the lots and like see a bunch of movie shit. So little kid Evan is just chilling out on the tram and he's just having a grand old time, just looking at all the different sets, and I'm like, oh shit, this is pretty dope. And, naturally I'm into filmmaking and everything, so I was deep into it, And, even at the Jaws part, I knew that shit was fake because I was like, okay, that's clearly plastic. That's ridiculous. And then you get to see the guy from Psycho. That was pretty cool. The Bates Motel. Yeah, man, I need to go back to Universal. But as we start going through the tour, we start going into this darker area. And keep in mind, this isn't the 3D version of King Kong that they have now. This was like a giant King Kong. Here's where it starts getting crazy to me, is we start entering into the King Kong part of the tour, the tram ride. I start seeing like, this dark rumblings and everything, and there's like little bits of fire and rubble, and I'm like, oh shit, something got fucked up here. And I'm just kind of looking around. And this is the kind of guy my dad is. When I was like 11, we would go into like Carl's Jr. or Burger King or something. We were about to go up to the cashier. If it was a girl, he'd be like, hey, just so you know, he gets pretty nervous talking to girls, but go ahead, son, order. And then would just look at me. So he enjoyed those moments where he could like play a prank on someone or just like make them feel like, oh shit, I look at my dad and I'm like, what's happening? Like, is this part of the ride? And my dad's just like, man, I don't know what this is. I don't know what's happening. And like, they're kind of playing into it like, oh shit, something went wrong in the tram ride, accidents happen. And I remember at this point, they had staged a television that was knocked over on its side. And I'm like, my little brain isn't even thinking about it. Like, that's a weird place for a TV with just the news on to be. And there was this newscaster, and she was like, we'd like to warn the general public that there is a giant gorilla on the loose, causing devastation. And I'm just looking at the TV like, and no one wants to tell me like, hey, it's just a ride, don't be scared. My little brain, I'm just like, okay, this tram is going a little slow because we just all saw on the news that there's a bigger issue going on than just this little studio tour. Like, we should probably, kick it in the high gear. get back to where we were so we can all hide, because giant gorilla. It seemed pretty serious. All this rubble and fire. Everything starts shaking. And then I'm just like, why is nobody else freaking out about this? This is not okay. I'm like, okay, I'm the only smart one here. Everybody else is too distracted by this tour. We come around the corner and boom, it's too late. King Kong was on this bridge, next to the tram ride, and we had to fucking go through the bridge to get out of there. So I'm like, oh shit. And I reacted like anybody would react in that situation, thinking it's real. We're getting closer and closer, and King Kong is on my side of the tram, of course. And I'm just like this, trying to melt into my chair, and I'm just moving away and everything. Nobody's helping me. No one's telling me it's not real. The people in front of us is again, another group of Asians on vacation. They're laughing so hard, and they were taking pictures of King Kong. They just start taking pictures of me. I wish somehow I could find these pictures that they got of me. It'd be my profile picture for the rest of my life. It's it must have looked amazing, because I'm probably just still at this point. Everybody on the tram is just looking at me, and they're just everybody's dying laughing. And for some reason, I had hit such a high level of panic as a little kid, I couldn't switch my brain off to being well, there's got to be a reason why everybody's laughing and I'm the only one not laughing. And I think finally we got past him. He must have been so distracted by my screaming that he just let us go. He was like, dude, that was kind of weird that you freaked out like that. I'm just King Kong, but have a good day. And we keep going through it. And then I don't know if at this point, I'm sure my mom now is going to be like, I told you before we went in there'd be a scary gorilla. You know how parents are. I never did that. We start going through the tram again. Motherfucker King Kong's on the other side, and my most famous line as a kid was, oh no, here we go again. And then everybody just starts dying laughing at me because I was just here we go again, like a classic 90s cop movie reference when you're about to go off a cliff in the car. Everybody was just dying laughing at me. They thought it was the funniest shit they'd ever seen in their life. I was scarred. It probably looked so fake. But I don't know if it was because it was such a traumatizing thing as a kid that I love King Kong now. All the King Kong movies, I support King Kong till the day I die, because he's a real one. He put me through it at a young age. I learned how to turn my weakness into a strength. As a bonus, since we're on the talk of Universal Studios, Jurassic Park. My mom was hosting a baby shower for someone. My dad took us to see Jurassic Park. Again, homeschooled kid. Didn't really know too much. I remember I was terrified of that movie. I remember as a little kid watching it, that scene where she's hanging in the ceiling, trying to get to the upper level, and the raptor runs and jumps for her leg and she swings it up. I remember my legs went above my head in the movie theater. Shit was wild. But here's the crazy part of me watching Jurassic Park for the first time. I was so terrified that I slept in my closet. But I was also worried that they would corner me, so I slept halfway in the closet. And I didn't have a flashlight. I had a lamp. So what I did is I took this lamp, I plugged it in with an extension cord, just laid in there with the lamp like I was just some soldier in there laying in his, in the sand dunes, just in the trenches. And I remember I would point the lamp at shadows and the shadow would move. I thought I was a T-Rex. I had a crazy imagination as a kid. And honestly, I think that's what it is. I think the more creative you are, the crazier you are at scaring yourself, because you think of scary movies and shit, and then you think about how they could be scarier. I always do that when I go see a horror movie. I think of ways that it could be creepier. Fucks me up. Why do I do that? Why can't I just enjoy it? But it's because I gotta take it to the next level. And then I'll be laying there at night in bed and I'll be thinking about the movie. If I was in that movie, what would make this scene creepier? And I'd be like, oh, if I stepped off to go to the bed or to the bathroom, and boom, some just grabs my leg, pulls me under the bed. This is my life. This is why I always look so tired, because I like to watch scary movies, and then I can't sleep at night because I figure out ways to scare myself more. And that's my life. If anybody else experienced that King Kong ride as a kid, please comment below and we will start a support group. Join me next week where I tell story time of the time in high school I thought I was cool as shit, took some tobacco chew, and I swallowed that shit in class. See how that turned out, dry heaving in the middle of the night. But until next time, I love you.